Welcome to Unmuted Love. I'm C. Eshelman, Attachment and Trauma Specialist, and I'm here to talk with you about all the things nobody wants to talk about but needs to. And today I have a guest host speaker who is Melanie, and her last name is hard for me to pronounce, so I'm going to have her do it. Go.
Zwyghuizen.
Zwyghuizen. And Melanie's here to talk with us about the problem with being a judge, jury, and referee in our kids' lives. She's a teacher for 30 years, now retired, and is a parent coach. And so she's really getting some skills here in helping parents walk this rocky path on the parenting journey. So welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's just get started with that. When you wrote your blog, which is what drew me to wanting to speak with you, because I am not that great at helping people with this particular problem, I don't think. I'm like, oh, yay, somebody who actually feels confident about this topic. Tell me a little bit about what you were thinking when you put that out there.
So that's really funny that you say confident because I had to get confident about it. I work with a lot of parents who struggle with this very thing with their kids, whether it's, friends on the playground or whether it's sibling rivalry or whatever it may be. And the reason we struggle, at least for me, and I'm sure for lots of your listeners as well, we weren't taught healthy conflict resolution. We weren't taught to engage in it. Some families I talk to, you have a conflict and then you just sweep it under the rug and you never talk about it. Well, that's not healthy. And then others, just shout and scream and whoever's loudest wins. And so I think that's reflected in our culture right now. I think we see a lot of people, right, who just don't know how to enter into healthy conflict resolution or listening to others. And so it makes sense that this is hard for us as parents to navigate this. So that's where that's coming from. I know I struggled. I have 3 kids. They're all adults now, 26, 28, and 30. But it's interesting because we were just talking about it the other day. I said, I failed, you guys. I did not know how to teach you healthy conflict resolution. As a teacher, I was like, well, that was silly. I didn't actually teach them a skill. So they were laughing the other day that, yeah, mom, what you guys would do is you would say, as calmly as you could, you would say, look, you guys can fight and I don't have to listen to it. Go figure it out. But I didn't give them any skills, right?
Right?
This was like, oh, I don't know. So go figure it out. So we'd stop the car and pull over and they'd get out. And my daughter just told me today, in fact, she goes, Mom, the deal is it's cold out. Can we just stop and get back in the car so we can, but it didn't solve anything, right? There was no resolution. And I remember one time I'm like, you guys go outside and get this taken care of. And again, I live in Michigan, so lots of opportunity for cold. And they're like freezing out on the deck and then they come right back in. I was like, well, I guess it's done. No. So I've had to learn, what does healthy conflict resolution actually look like? And a lot of parents I talk to as well, you want it to end. It's awful. It's loud, it's messy, it's complicated, and you just want it to stop. And it happens all the time.
For a lot of my listeners here,
Yeah.
one of the things that happens that's just really difficult is kind of, I don't know if you would consider this conflict, but it's like riding in the car. You have 2 kids, they're in the back seat, and they are just fighting. And it could be
Yep.
physical, like just poking at each other or putting their hand on the other person's side and then like, get your hand off my side, or don't touch me. Why are you
She
right?
looked at me wrong.
Yeah, like she's
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
she's saying things that you can't hear, mom.
Yep.
And here you are driving, usually on a freeway, usually going too fast. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that? When I was a kid, of course, you just get backhanded. That's how you get,
Exactly.
mom would
Same.
reach her over and just smack you good, and then it was done.
Yep. Yep.
I don't think that was a really good plan. It didn't teach me any skills either, just so you know.
Exactly. So I think, right, in those moments, that's why we pulled the car over because we were trying to teach them, hey, we have to drive safely. And with you guys doing this, it's not safe, which I think is fine to do that if you have the time and can safely pull over and do that for your kids. But hopefully you've taught them some skills outside of that moment. And I think that's the important piece is that when we often will wait until it's the conflict and then we're triggered and they're up and, so waiting for those calmer moments where we can teach them, we can model for them those healthy skills with our partners as well. I don't know about you, but my husband and I never fought in front of the kids. And we thought that was maybe a good thing. And now I'm rethinking that and thinking, well, no wonder they don't know how to have healthy conflict
Mhm.
because it never happened in front of them. They didn't know what was taking place. We thought we were protecting them
Mhm.
from that messy part of life, but really it didn't do them any good. So I encourage parents now to teach healthy conflict resolution. And a lot of them will say, well, I don't know. I don't know what, right? So that's acknowledging and being aware, learning right alongside your kids. And we have a lot of stories, we have a lot of narratives that we always have to deal with first or alongside of what we're trying to teach our kids. So I would say go ahead and, have a conflict with your significant other or with someone, because we need to teach kids how, I think, number one, to show up and listen to the other person.
Mhm.
What does that look like? What does it look like to listen well? My husband always jokes that we're Jesus followers. And so he always jokes that God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. But it's true, right? Because most of us show up to listen, but not really listen. We show up to listen to respond. Like
Mhm.
we're half listening to that person, thinking about, well, what am I going to say back when it's my turn? If we even wait a turn, right? I think it starts with teaching kids that the person that you're having conflict with is exactly that. It's another person, it's someone that you love. And can you just stop for a moment and listen to what they are trying to tell you? Because they're hurt or something you've done has upset them or whatever it may be. Definitely making sure that we humanize the person that we're looking at or that we're having this conflict with is a good step, a good place to start.
So I think my listeners might say to you, my kids really don't take being taught by me, even when they're outside the moment, a process or like,
Mhm.
is this a step one, step two, step three?
Mhm.
How do you actually teach a child that doesn't want to learn that?
I like to do outside the moment, a lot of modeling and a lot of little pieces. But let's say that they're in conflict. And the reason I said that when we show up as judge, jury, and referee, there's problems with that. It's because, and I would do it too, it was always the oldest's fault, right? And I assumed what had happened. Now that my kids are adults, they're like, yeah, mom, that wasn't what happened at all. And I'm like, oh my word, that's awful. But when we show up like that, we're assuming and we're teaching kids that, well, that's just the way it is, instead of actually listening to one another. So now what I do is if kids are fighting, right, instead of coming on the scene and wanting it to end and fixing it for them, if they won't solve it, well, I'll solve it. I'll just take the toy and there you go, we're done. We can say, okay, let's all calm down first, right? That's first step. And that's always difficult for everyone, but let's take that moment. And even if that's the step that they learn for the day, perfect. But I would encourage parents then to go back to those moments when everybody's calm. And it's not like you're teaching them, like, sit down, lesson one, lesson two. No, it's like, okay, now let's listen to each other. And one starts talking. You can decide who starts talking. And go ahead and tell your side of it. And this isn't to listen to make the judgment, it's to listen so that the kids feel seen and heard. And, they start talking, and let's say they're like, that's not what happened. The other one, you're like, hang on. Everybody gets a chance to be heard. Everybody gets a chance to tell their side or to talk about how they're feeling right now. And you listen well. And then you model to them empathy. I think most of us want to raise our kids with empathy, and we model that for them. And so this one, I can say, that sounds really difficult. That sounds like that really hurt when he said that to you or when he did that or whatever. Right. And again, I'm not saying you were wrong. That's it. We're done with this. But I'm modeling empathy back. And then it's okay. You've had your turn. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Okay. Now it's your turn. Right. So we're modeling back and forth for that, listening and listening well to each other. So it's not, a lesson per se. Does that make sense?
Sure, it's
Yeah,
it's working through something together in a
exactly.
healthy way. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly, I do a lot of couples counseling and
Yeah.
I actually have to like, okay, the very same process that you just outlined
Yeah,
is what has to happen in couples counseling because
exactly.
none of us really learned conflict
Oh,
resolution in adulthood either.
no, we didn't. So it's hard to show up and teach that to our kids, but I think it's super, super important because there's conflict everywhere.
Right. And in our culture, like you said, is
Yeah.
really big. And it's almost like, well, this is how people are. We just conflict with each other. We just
Yeah.
don't like you anymore if we have a conflict with you. If we don't agree
Right. We
with you,
cancel
like,
you or
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't deal with you or right.
And I do notice kids actually canceling people, like, no, I'm not your friend anymore. And I think it might have started in the playground and it's just become part of adult life now, politics.
That's true.
I
That's
think
true.
it
Where we
started
did
on the playground.
that's funny and true.
I have a funny story about this, or maybe it's not funny, but it was funny to me. I have adult children too. We have similar age children. I have a
Oh, okay.
27 and 30-year-old.
Oh,
And
yeah.
my husband and I don't really fight either, very, very infrequently. So it wasn't something that was ever modeled because it wasn't a thing.
Right.
But after my kids were adult, I was just chit-chatting with one of them in the car one day when I think she was probably 26. And she says, well, Mom, you know how it's not her dad, it's
Mhm.
stepdad. She said, you know how you and Mark fight all the time. And I said, what?
For perception.
What? And she's like, yeah, you know how you guys fight all the time. And I'm like, babe, we don't fight at all. What do you mean? It's like, you fight all the time. I'm like, what? Can you give me an example of something we've been fighting about that you've seen recently? And she's like, well, kind of all the time. And then I realized, oh, we're joking. We have a way of bantering that's
Mm.
joking, that's not funny to kids. And I didn't know that. And so all this time, so we raised these kids from little. They thought, or at least this one thought, that we bickered all the time, all the time, all the time.
Oh,
And
that's so interesting.
but that was her perception, and she comes from
Yep.
difficult beginnings, and so the sound of it sounded like fighting, and
Yep.
so she never really listened to the words or processed that it was joking, because we knew we were joking, so we didn't have to explain it.
Right.
But that was shocking, right, for me to hear that, like, oh my gosh, babe, that was joking. She does have trouble with black and white thinking, and we've talked about it before because she's coined that I have dry humor and she has wet humor. She
I
never
love,
really understands dry humor, but she understands wet humor. And boy, is that
love
true.
that.
So that's what it turned out to be, right? This is just
Yeah.
misinterpreting dry humor as
Yeah.
fighting. I gave a terrible model for my kids growing up, for relationship even.
But I think that's so interesting though, as we now have older kids and we can look back and we can get their perceptions because brain development will tell us that. Have you ever do you remember teenage years? And I taught high school, so this would happen a lot. During brain development, during those years, they process facial expressions and tone and they misinterpret a lot of times. And so, kids would be like, that was mean or she's this or that. But as far as just naming it out loud, like, oh, that is not what I intended. And talking about those types of things and bringing them to light can be really, really helpful.
That is what we ended up doing, is that
Yeah.
because I mean, I'm not going to get rid of dry humor ever.
No.
But I would say something, I mean, this is actually sounds mean if you think I'm not joking, but I'm like, you need to pick up your room or I'm going to break your arm. And I'm totally joking. There's no way
Right.
I'm going to touch my child that way.
Right.
And so my daughter would say, that's dry humor, right, Mom?
Trying to process that. Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, yes, it is.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
horrible.
Yeah.
But
But
we
I think that's why we chose not to fight in front of our kids too. My youngest struggles with anxiety. I can remember if we like raised voices, she would think, "Mom, Dad, are you getting a divorce?" And it would cause her so much stress and anxiety. So, it was with good intention that we didn't want to fight in front of them, but then we didn't teach them the skills that they needed either by doing so. So,
just the way we talk about it, right? Just how you're saying,
yeah,
and I talk about it this way too, is that we didn't fight in front
fight.
of them. Like, why were we fighting? Like, couldn't we just have a discussion, or
Right.
can we
Or a
disagree in a
disagreement.
disagreement, or even an argument is better than a fight?
Right.
So it's interesting the way culturally kind of conceive of when we don't agree with about something.
And we think it's a bad thing,
Yeah,
like we all have to agree, well, that's not going to happen because we're all so different and coming from different perspectives. And for us, it's been a journey of the Enneagram. I don't know if you're familiar
yeah.
with the Enneagram, right? Of, oh, well, this is how I show up and view the world. And this is how you come into, and that's really helped us too.
I love that. Actually, that's true for the folks that I work with who have children who have experienced trauma, is really learning how they interpret things versus how we do. And I learned this the hard way because of dry humor. But like how consequences are interpreted by children who've been
Yep.
harmed is that you're being mean to them
Yes.
versus you're just giving them something that everybody gets. Everybody gets a
Yeah.
consequence if they do something wrong. And
Yes.
not me being mean, it's the normal
Yeah.
sequence of events. But kids from difficult beginnings do not experience it that
Right.
way. They did what they did out of survival brain, and then they get in trouble for a brain
Mm-hmm.
process that they
Mm-hmm.
believe was 100% necessary. And then
Yep.
we come in and we punish them, which of course is going to feel mean to them.
Yes.
That's I spend a lot of time teaching people therapeutic parenting, and have
Yeah.
that is the thing I have to teach is their perspective. What is the child's perspective?
Exactly. And I'm not by any means a trauma specialist, but in my later years of teaching, we did begin to have trauma informed education, professional development. And so I learned a lot from that too, that the kids who are coming to us with trauma can even misinterpret my body language if I'm coming towards them versus getting down on their level and things like that. And so I learned a lot and have actually now helped parents do that as well, because I remember in our professional development, someone said, a teacher raised their hand. They're like, look, I've got 150 kids a day. How am I supposed to keep straight? Who has trauma? Who doesn't? When this, when that? And I remember our instructor said, you're not going to, but you also don't need to. And I was like, okay.
I
And
get
then
that.
she went on to say, these are good for everybody.
That's right.
And I
That's
was like, oh, big
mhm.
aha moment that,
Yeah.
you know what? We're right. These are good strategies for everyone.
Traditional parenting is not necessarily good for neurotypical kids either.
I agree with that. It's not.
It's just they don't take it quite as personally, right? They are
Exactly.
better able to weather the slings and arrows of traditional parenting.
Exactly. That's exactly what I say too. Yes.
Yeah,
So
but it's like, well, okay, why do we want our kids to have to weather the slings and arrows of parenting? Like, shouldn't it
just
be
because they can.
a
Yeah,
softer landing? Yeah.
exactly.
So, I
Exactly.
mean, I often have to say this is therapeutic parenting is actually just good parenting. It's not.
Amen.
I mean, it turns
Totally
out
agree.
to also be therapeutic, but it would
Totally
be
agree.
it would be healthy for everybody to just get a dose of caring about how the child perceives
Yes.
experience of being parented,
Yeah.
and then parenting according to that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's true in conflict then too. We can teach kids as they listen to one another. Maybe I didn't mean to look at you mean, and that's how you interpret it. Like, oh, I did not mean that.
Yes. Yes.
That wasn't my intended message. And so clarifying is another, right? Let's listen. Let's see if we have this right. Did this person intend to hurt me? And teaching kids that, you know what, sometimes we show up because there's something else going on. And that conflict isn't really about the toy. That conflict is about something, I'm feeling hurt by you from earlier or whatever it may be. So, yeah,
Experience. So let's make sure that we get your process down. So
sure.
you sit down, you
Yep.
listen, and make sure that you have empathy,
Yep.
demonstrate the empathy. Do you ask the other child to demonstrate any empathy, or do you just model it?
It depends on the age, depends on the child. I parents, your kids better than anyone, and if they're ready for that. What I wouldn't do is force it. That's kind of like that forced apology that we were all forced to make, right? Well, say
Mhm.
you're sorry, or you say this, or you say that, when we all know it didn't mean anything. So I think, your kids best. You can invite them into it if they're ready for how would you like to respond to your sister, or what would make that better for you in this moment, right? Instead of coming in with the solutions for them, but listening well and then problem solving together. Like, okay, we've heard both of you. What would make this better for both of you? Or how can both of you get your need met? Sometimes we both get our needs met, and sometimes we compromise, and sometimes we agree to disagree, and sometimes, right? That's conflict. Conflict is messy and it's complicated. It's not one way, but when we show up listening really well, we can usually then problem solve really well as well. I always add humor when I'm working with kids like that too, and just something silly. If they're stuck in, well, I don't know, nothing will make it better, because sometimes that happens. I'm like, oh, I know. let's just, and I'll come up with something silly. And then it kind of lightens that mood and lightens all of us, not to ignore it, not to push it away, but just to kind of get us unstuck and moving towards a resolution. Parents, the resolution it's not an emergency. The resolution doesn't have to come right that second either. Sometimes I'll say, okay, kids, seems like you guys need some time and maybe some more space before we can figure this out. Let's agree to come back in however long, or after dinner or whatever it may be. The caution there is making sure that you come back to it,
Right.
because
Mel,
otherwise there's no follow through.
what I know is in these busy family lives,
Yep.
people are like, that sounds like a really long process for a really small bickering session.
Yep.
Really? That's what we have to do?
Yep. I understand. So when you can enter into that longer process, right? When you don't have the time and the energy, you can always enter into it later. Like, you know what, kids, we're going to table this for now and we're going to come back to this when we have time. Whether it's if you do family meetings, or just maybe it's before bedtime, getting this resolved, or whenever it is you have a little bit more time. But let's say that they're in it and they're just fighting in this moment and you don't have very much time. But again, we want it to end. So instead of coming in with judge and jury and referee and stop it, oh, that's not nice to say, you don't do that, and back and forth, just observe. I heard someone describe it once as being like Siri, like you're just use your Siri voice and you're just observing. Maybe it's two little kids fighting. I see two kids who want the same toy.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do is just observe. I see two kids who are upset and want the same toy. What do you think we could do about that? And bam, you're already there. So you're not going through this process all the time with kids. Or if it's older, I see two kids that want to watch different shows and there's one TV and there's one remote. What do you guys think? How could we work this out? Well, I got, and they start, huh, looks like you're not quite ready to work it out. So I'm going to shut the TV off for now and let's see if we can come up with a solution. And then they usually, they'll come up with something pretty quick. But, well, I guess you can watch yours first and then I'll watch mine. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. But I'm not the one going, okay, fine, stop it, or no TV whatsoever, or, and just ending it.
That's your childhood version of the cold, get out of the car in the cold and
Yes.
resolve this.
Yes.
TV's
Yeah.
off till you resolve this. Yeah, I
Yes.
see. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I want to make sure that you have time to talk about what you provide to parents in case one of our listeners here would enjoy a private conversation with you or some of your
Yeah,
research.
that sounds great. So, what I offer now, both for organizations and for parents, so if someone of an organization, whether it's a church or maybe a nonprofit, I just became a 501c3 so that we can provide sliding scale services to organizations and to parents alike, so that whether it's a workshop or a seminar or one-on-one coaching. I also do group coaching and run some mini courses as well. So I can provide those for all parents, because I truly, truly believe that all parents deserve support, not just those with financial resources. So that is available, and you can check out the website at gen1parenting.org, and all that information is on there. There's some free resources on there as well, from like the blog that you found. I love to write and I love to share, to our monthly newsletter. So if you want to sign up for the newsletter there, that's great too. So yeah.
Well, those are all great resources. And I love that you are a 501c3, as
Yeah.
I toy with that every once in a while.
Yeah.
To become a 501c3. I might still someday as I get a little ready to
Yeah.
retire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you already have made that transition. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
so appreciate you coming in and talking with me today and talking with my audience, who we really do struggle with conflict because our kids are so easily dysregulated.
Yeah.
It gets really hard to figure out
Yeah.
what is the right thing to do. So
Yeah, we're walking that in my family as well. My oldest adopted a little boy, so we understand the complexity of the adoption and all of that and the attachment. And so my heart is with all of you parents that are walking this, because it's not easy. It's
no, it
definitely,
is as hard as it feels, actually.
yes, exactly. It's as hard as it feels. So yeah, so I have a special place for your audience, and
Thank you so much for being here. And
thank you, Steve.
you all have been listening to Unmuted Love. Your love matters when more than love is required. I'll see you in the next episode. And if you want to check out Mel's information, you can find all this information in the show notes today. So take care, everyone.